In my experience, the problem has to do with, in talk therapy and couples counseling, the communication problem has not been addressed properly. Destructive conflict goes something like this. Two of you are walking down the street and all of a sudden you fall into a hole and you can't get out of the hole and you start tearing each other up. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship, and today we're talking about shark-infested strife and how to move from those bloody waters of a couple that's deep in destructive conflict to blue ocean bliss, where there's lots of opportunity and you're working together and there's no threat, no fear, where your children feel safe and you feel safe. The last episode, what we talked about was how to lead your family single-handedly into a better place. And today, let me be clear, single-handedly, even if your partner doesn't seem to be up for it. Well, this is the episode where we talk about what if your partner is up for it, right? And how do you approach that? And let me give you a backdrop for this conversation. Statistics on couples counseling and family therapy are pretty raw. Of the marriages that go to couples counseling and family therapy, 46% of them report that things are better. That's almost 1 out of 2. Not quite. But after a few weeks of ending couples counseling or family therapy, out of that 46%, 14% report that their relationship actually gets worse when they're finished. So that means that the real statistic is something like 30% of marriages are improved by couples counseling and family therapy after you take that 14% out. Maybe 40, somewhere in there. It's not a great number. And there are other ways to go at this. So we're going to talk about why. Why isn't couples counseling and family therapy working? I mean, there's been some tremendous research in the field. What is getting in the way? All right, so I think the first thing we really want to cover is, how do you measure success in a relationship? What does it mean? What does success mean for the relationship? And the big complaint that almost everybody universally comes across with is, they don't understand me. They don't hear what I'm saying. No matter what I say, they just don't seem to get it. And there have been books about this, Men Are From Mars or Women Are From Venus, which basically frames the communication conflict problem as being one of men have a different way of going at things than women do. And that is, by the way, 100% true. And yet, many people have read this book, including couples counselors and family therapists, and have not been able to resolve this problem through simply understanding that it exists. Other problems in communication can come up when you grow up in different cultures. And so words maybe have different meanings for one another. Success in your family might be very different than success in your partner's family. Also, there's the thing that we don't talk about a lot, and this is what family therapy and couples counseling really focuses on, actually quite effectively, I will say, is the root strategies that we develop in our childhood that are getting in the way of our marriage or relationship today. So since I'm acknowledging that talk therapy basically does a good job with this, why isn't it more successful? And in my experience, the problem has to do with, in talk therapy and couples counseling, the communication problem has not been addressed properly. There's a large number of therapists and counselors who say things like, you won't be interrupting each other in this room, or I can't have you fighting in this room. And so these couples behave themselves really well. They learn to behave themselves really well in the room, some of them. And then when they stop going, there's no more boundaries, no more rules. They haven't made them themselves. They're coming from an external force. Hey, and if you're listening to this and you're a therapist or a counselor, please pluck these ideas and use them, because I am with you. Let's make relationships work better, help them work better. We can't make them work better. Let's give them the tools they need to work better. And then the other part is that I think that often couples counselors and therapists are not adequately trained to get to the root concern under a position. So very often when couples go into counseling and therapy, and I'm speaking as someone who's gone into counseling, each person has a position, and very often counselors in particular are trained to help them compromise from that position. But the problem isn't always the position. The problem is the values and the needs under the position. Right? And sometimes we compromise on the position and we compromise on values and needs that are really essential to us. And when we compromise on them, we feel dirty. We feel like we gave up a couple of fingers. We feel like something's really wrong or broken, and it still doesn't work. And so until we can get to the underlying values, right, we can't really move to a blue ocean strategy, right? So the shark-infested waters are the waters where people are bickering and fighting because of miscommunication between men and women, because of cultural differences, because of age differences, because of strategies that we created in our childhood to defend ourselves in our family of origin that aren't working in our family today. And what we do with those things is we meld them together into a position. This is my position and I'm sticking to it. If you don't do X, Y, and Z, I'm leaving. That's a position. The real juice in moving from a red ocean, from shark-infested waters to a blue ocean is to get under the position. And this is where the blue ocean marriage approach at Rich in Relationship is really effective. What we do here is we help, first we take a mediation stance. And as a trained mediators, we help each couple to understand what's the underlying value. We help them to articulate the problem. We help them to recognize where they're misunderstanding each other. We help them to see what the filters are that the misunderstanding is occurring in. We help them to see the flavor, the tone, and the pace of the negative conflict. And we help them to reach an agreement to stop doing it, right? This is really key. And we do this by allowing them space to have that conflict, right? We don't tell them, you can't do that here. We don't tell them there will be no interrupting. We don't do any of those things. Instead, we let them figure out how they're going to stop having that negative conflict. And once they stop having it, once they understand that it's being driven by a part of themselves that is trying to defend against something that may not even be happening in the relationship, that's defending against something that was perhaps a fear that was ingrained from childhood, or maybe a lesson learned from their parents, or maybe even it's a generational lesson that came down from their parents' parents, or even their parents' parents' parents, maybe, or what some people call generational curse, right? Once they recognize what it is that they've got from their families and how it's showing up for them and how it's causing them to be positioned and how it's causing them to receive and see things and express things in a certain way, they're now in a position to stop. Stop having that dysfunctional fight. I'm going to win, you're going to lose. That hurts everybody and nobody ever wins. Once we get them to that place, they are now in a place. They understand some of their filters. They understand some of their family history. They are now in a place to engage in unraveling those feelings, letting go of the old emotion. They are now in a place to begin to identify limiting beliefs and let go of those things so that their relationship can blossom and grow. Now, why is it that we do that so well and that relationship counselors and family therapists don't? Because honestly, the therapy/counseling model is relationally a female-driven model. And it might work very well for women, but it doesn't work so well for men. The mediation model is somewhat goal-oriented, but it melds qualities of talk therapy in it. Without the therapy, there's a lot of talk and a lot of exploration. There's a lot of acknowledgement, a lot of validation, a lot of making sure that both sides hear each other, that both sides understand each other, that appropriate respect is shown, that appropriate confidence and faith is spoken into both sides. There's a lot of attention paid to that early on in the process before we get to letting go of old emotions, before we get into exploring limiting beliefs. And honestly, once a couple has this piece down, once they know they stop falling into this hole, they really are living a marriage the way most people think marriage should be, but not what we would call a soulmate level marriage. So when you're living marriage the way people should be, both people understand each other, they have a partnership, they may love and care for each other, but they're operating more individually and less relationally. When you're in a soulmate level relationship, the two people are invested in each other's success, not just their individual success and some relational success, but they're invested in each other's individual success, and their relational success is founded on that. Right? And that's the distinction between kind of a normal, successful marriage and a soulmate level marriage. In a soulmate level marriage, you will give your life to the other person. In a soulmate level marriage, you have decided that this is the love of your life. You have decided that you will stand by them no matter what. You've decided that you are all in, 100% all in. And that decision on both sides allows a super high level of intimacy, care, and concern. It allows a much deeper understanding of one another. Now, I want you to know that plenty of people take the blue ocean marriage approach that we give them, and they're perfectly satisfied just having the ability to resolve differences and not step into the dark pit of destructive conflict. It's so much better for the children. It's so much better for them. But if you want to go to that next level, that really requires getting clear about all the areas of your life and understanding each other's dreams for each area of your life. And by area of your life, I'm talking about 12 areas that are broken down to two. The two basic areas of the individual's life are, what do I want for me? What's my within life? And the second is, what do I want in my relationships with others, in my without life? And those two areas are broken down into 6 quadrants each. The within is broken down to my body, my emotions, my intellect, my spirit, my values, and my sense of mission and purpose, right? And when each individual in a soulmate level marriage has these two areas understood and in alignment and working well together, and they support each other in that, they're then ready for the next 6 areas, which is partnership, right? When you really understand your partner's goals for their body, their emotions, their intellect, their spirit, their values, and their mission, and you're really supporting them in that, and vice versa, then you can really get an alignment in your partnership. Then you can really nurture your family. Then you can really build in your community. You can have financial and career growth, and that's going to allow you to have your shared vision for your lifestyle, right? That's a soulmate level marriage. It's going to touch on all of that. A normal blue ocean marriage is maybe not going to touch on all that, but you'll still be okay. I mean, by most standards, people's standards, you'll be doing better than 50% of the population who are getting divorced, right? Think about that. I want you to think about what's more attractive to you. Do you want to just be doing better than 50% of the population, or would you like to be up there in that top group that really understands each other and moves forward? Of course you want that top group, because when we fall in love, that's what it's all about. When we fall in love, we see everything that the other person can be, and they see everything that we can be, and we glory in that confidence that we have in what another's can be. It's amazing. All right, so actually, let me just lay out one more thing. It's about this destructive conflict thing. I want you to really understand it. Destructive conflict goes something like this. The two of you are walking down the street, and all of a sudden you fall into a hole, and you can't get out of the hole, and you start tearing each other up, cannibalizing each other. You can't get out of the hole. You finally get out of the hole, and you go, man, I'll never do that again. And then the two of you are walking down the street, and you fall in that hole again, right? Destructive conflict is where you're just falling into that hole again and again and again. And what feels good about tearing each other up in that hole is there's the opportunity to dump stress that you've been carrying, dump frustration you've been carrying, dump fear. But I say it's like cannibalism because you're basically destroying the relationship in order to feel better about yourself. You're withdrawing from your relationship bank so that you can build yourself up. And eventually, you're going to destroy the relationship. And the problem, even if you destroy the relationship and get divorced, is you're going to go back into the next relationship and probably rinse, wash, and repeat. Maybe you won't wash. You just rinse and repeat. All right. The statistics are that 50% of first marriages fail. And I think it's something like 70% of second marriages fail and 80% of third marriages fail. So what happens is people make this mistake and they make it again and they make it again and they make it again. And what we're suggesting to you is you don't have to fall into the hole. So imagine you're walking down the street and through our Blue Ocean program, all of a sudden you see the hole and you say to each other, let's tiptoe around that hole. And you start to recognize, we're going down this side of the street here. That leads to that hole. Let's go down the other side of the street. And then eventually you realize, why are we even going down this street, right? This street is just a bad street for us. Let's go to Peace Street. That's a great street. That's kind of what we're helping people to do. Now, once you've got this piece under your belt, once you have a normal, regular marriage, you know what? Sometimes couples counseling or family therapy is going to be better for you. I'm going to be honest. Once you have that figured out, how to end the red ocean of the negative dynamic and you move into the blue ocean of knowing how to resolve differences positively, that's when you can start doing that deep work. That's when the 30% becomes really effective. That's when you can really, having talk therapy and identifying what are the things I learned in my family of origin and how do I unravel them can be highly effective. And we also have processes here at Rich in Relationship. We've got a mental and emotional release process that can help with that also. It's faster and more effective than therapy, but you need to do what you feel comfortable with. All right, so let's just encapsulate this. The problem with couples counseling and family therapy is, in its current form, it has a low success rate. The reason for that is, we believe, because it does not deal with how to end negative communication, negative conflict, how to stop couples from falling in that hole and dumping their emotion. And it doesn't give them the tools they need to have positive conflict resolution. And we believe that once couples have these tools, see that hole and have these tools, then they can do better in any environment that's going to help them release old emotions and let go of old beliefs to create something new. It's the equivalent of pulling filters off of your eyes, lifting the scales off your eyes, for those of you who know that reference. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you want to know more about any of these processes, please reach out to me, rich@richinrelationship.com. Please ask that other people subscribe. You should subscribe. We're going to keep having amazing episodes like this. We're going to continue to explore relationships and what works and what doesn't. And we invite you to come back for the next episode of Rich in Relationship.